What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to break down what the news, data, and technicals are telling us about the overall market in Tesla, and how this may affect Tesla's share price going into next week, and also what data is coming out for tomorrow that will affect how the market ends up moving. Now, before I break anything down about this, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $3,000. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 1 week. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Tesla is down 0.25% for the day as of right now, but it did do something very similar to what I predicted. I told you all that Tesla would likely come down a little bit lower and actually try to bounce around this 180 zone. We ended up bouncing around 179.74, very close to 180. Then the market actually started to rally a bit today after we did see a lot of shorts getting squeezed. Once again, this is what typically happens near the end of the week. And Tesla pumped to about 185, 186 around there, closing above 185, which is a pretty good sign. We did close above some heavy resistance. And now I believe Tesla has more potential to keep going. I made a prediction that Tesla would either bounce near the end of the day for today, or this thing would actually continue to bounce more going into next week. But either way, I did see more upside coming going into next week, and I do still stand by that. Now, Tesla has this resistance right about here that it has been respecting for the last couple of days, and it does look to me like Tesla's going to break this very, very soon. I am personally actually holding Tesla calls. I bought them around 180, and I'm still holding most of them. I did secure some profits. I have 190 calls for, I believe, next Friday. Either way, I'm still holding them. I'm pretty confident Tesla's going to keep going, and I do believe it's going to get above 190 next week, maybe even 195, and I do see some more upside to come. Now, I also want to note that even though I am pretty bullish, at least for the start of next week, we have to be very cautious because of CPI coming out by Wednesday. So we have so much data coming out. I will break this all down in more detail a little bit later, but first I want to talk about something else. As far as the data goes, for today, we had initial jobless claims a little bit higher than expected. We expected 205,000 jobless claims. We got 228,000 instead. This means that the unemployment sector is starting to go up. There's a lot more weakness in the job sector, especially after the PMI report was suggesting we're getting closer to a recession. So a lot of data points are now pointing the direction of weaker employment in America, unemployment going up, more contraction in the economy, and we're consistently seeing the data get worse and worse for the economy. What this means is the Fed is likely going to get closer to slowing down and not being as aggressive. Jerome Powell said that what the Fed is likely going to do is they're going to slow down on the rate hikes and let the entire economy do the work for them. The tightening is going to happen slowly. We just have to be patient. I do believe the Fed is going to pause in the upcoming months. I don't think they're going to pause yet, but maybe by the time we get to June or July. And then in the process of that, that will affect the entire view of the economy, the entire sentiment. I also want to note that when it comes to the Fed pivot, I do not see a Fed pivot anytime soon. It's going to take a while for them to do that. If anything, they are incentivized to keep rates high for an extended period of time. This is what Bullard said today, not today, yesterday. He actually said this. He did speak again today later on. This is why the market was actually very slow in the beginning of the day. I warned you all about this because when Bullard speaks, the market has a tendency of slowing down. He's very, very hawkish. But then once he was out of there, once the market started to actually find its bottom, then the market started to just continue to go up and up and up, and this helped the entire market, especially tech, continue to rally, once again squeezing shorts. Now, for tomorrow, we have some very big data. We have unemployment data coming out. This is super, super important. All right. If unemployment is way too low, this is going to be very bearish for the stock market. But if unemployment is actually very close to expectations, if not a little bit higher, then this could actually help the market continue to hold up or even rally a bit. Because once again, we want more pain in the job sector. This is what the stock market wants. Good news is bad news. You could say whatever you want. This is what the market wants. And if we get what we want, then it incentivizes the Fed to not be as hawkish. Now, what do I think this is going to bring? I just want to note that this is coming out when the market is going to be closed. The market's going to be closed tomorrow because it's Good Friday, but even though that's the case, it will come out, and I think it's going to be as expected, if not a little bit higher, because near the end of March, we saw more initial jobless claims than expected. So we started to see more weakness in the labor market by the end of March, and I do believe this might help this unemployment rate be as expected, if not higher. We also have some more cars data, also government payrolls data. And then we don't have a whole lot coming out after that for Monday and Tuesday of next week. Remember, the market's closed on Friday. It's going to reopen on Monday. Not a whole lot is going on for those days, but then by Wednesday, it's going to be a massive day. We have CPI on Wednesday. I personally have a tendency of not really holding any positions overnight before like CPI days. I think it's very risky and tricky, and CPI can be very manipulated. You don't know if the market's going to just react up or down. It could be all over the place. So I just want to give you guys a heads up on Wednesday when CPI comes out. Until then, the technicals still look more bullish for the market. Now, as far as SPY goes, we had about 1.2 million puts expiring. The large majority of them ended up out of the money. Shorts got destroyed again. SPY closed above 409, and also max pin was at 407 with a 1.69 put to call ratio. What this all means is the market makers pumped the markets. They were working with institutions to do this as well, and this caused pain for options holders, the majority of them. The market has a tendency of doing this, and this actually helped them out. For next week, we do have a high put to call ratio again. Maybe the market tries to rally a bit. I don't know about like Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but I'm pretty bullish for like Monday and Tuesday, at least for the time being. Now, let's talk about Tesla real quick, some data. Then I'm going to break down the charts just real quick. I'm going to try to rush through this just to get as much of this done as possible and as little time. Looking at Tesla, I just want to note that they've actually tripled their Gigafactory workforce in 2022. More and more people are being hired there, and they do plan on actually improving the overall area. I think Elon Musk once spoke about them building new facilities there, maybe having like a biking trails and very, very nice things like that. It's a super, super huge gigafactory. I mean, it's absolutely incredible how much work was put into this, and Tesla's continuing to make more investments into it. They invested over $5 billion to date so far, and I just continue to see more growth coming out of it. As time goes on, this is bullish for Tesla. I think this will help with their numbers, their deliveries, and other factors like that. Also, there has been more talk about Kimball Musk, who's actually a member of the board. He actually cashed out about $17 million worth of Tesla stock after his options had given him the option, I believe, of exercising them. He ended up not doing that. He ended up selling a large percentage of them, but he did note that he's still very, very bullish on Tesla. Anyways, he still believes in the purpose and etc. Now, say what you want, but many people have different views about this. I mean, he was selling around a 192 to about 202. Could it be that he knows something? Could it just be a coincidence? Who knows? But I just want to note to everyone, we are seeing some board members of Tesla starting to sell at these higher levels. They could be anticipating something going forward. Who knows? But once again, I don't want to go down the like conspiracy theory route or anything like that. It's just something I want to note. Now, Elon Musk also retweeted this Tesla Master Plan Part 3. This was reported on Tesla's blog. And you could see right here Tesla's continuing to plan for the future to help Earth transition away from fossil fuels to become more sustainable for the longer term. It's going to require more investments and a large percentage of the not that massive of a percentage of the world's GDP, but a lot of plans are still being made right now, and I just want to note that it's very important for Tesla to continue to shout their purpose over and over again to get people unified and to let the world know what they're doing. This could help more investors invest in the company. It could really help with the vision, and what makes a company so brilliant would be the vision, how it makes people feel, the contingencies, the sentiment. All of that is so exciting when you think about Tesla, and it's part of why I'm still very bullish. Elon Musk is constantly reminding us of all of that. Now, one thing that's not so good about Tesla is the fact that the inventory levels are continuing to increase over and over and over again. This is telling me that demand is now slowing down for Teslas. We are showing more and more signs of us getting closer to a recession. I don't think that this is going to hurt Tesla that horribly in terms of like if they could continue to meet lots of expectations, but I do believe it could slow them down, right? There's a big difference between them doing horribly and them slowing down a bit. We're likely going to see a big difference between deliveries and production. I'm still very confident production is going to be fine. I'm just not as confident about deliveries now. Once again, demand is just continuing to slow down. Tesla's incentivized to do something differently, maybe try to get more of their vehicles to qualify for tax credits or even decrease prices. They are being incentivized to do that as of right now. Tesla has relatively low volume, 121 million versus the 141 million on average. I believe the short volume is likely going to start decreasing a bit. It was down yesterday. Yeah, so far from yesterday, we might see this thing increase a little bit as Tesla was red for today. Then it might start to respect a slight downtrend or even drop a little bit going into early next week, in my opinion, because I think Tesla has more potential to try to bounce. I also believe that the overall price per ratio is starting to decrease, but it did actually bounce off this low just a couple of days ago. So that tells me that we might see this thing actually try to bounce again. We might see Tesla outperform the market a little bit. It's still very possible once I show you guys more data. Deutsche Bank is saying buy Tesla. There hasn't been many updates from there. Earnings have been typically relatively good for Tesla. And also, on Mondays, Tesla tends to be green 53% of the time. We're closed on Friday. That's why I'm talking about Monday. Aprils tend to be more bullish for Tesla 58% of the time. All of this will depend on earnings though, but so far we are still doing all right. We tend to be more bullish during the fourth hour, so be patient with Tesla. It sometimes takes its time. As far as the shorting goes, we did see a decrease in the shorting just, I believe, yesterday or like 2 days ago when this updated. There was actually more shorting. We saw over 20 plus million shares being shorted over the last couple of days. Then very recently, we did see a decrease right over here just yesterday. So once again, pretty decent sign. There's a little bit less shorting now, and we might see Tesla now improve because of that. I also want to note that in my previous videos, I was talking about a lot of negative news affecting Tesla. That is because a lot of shorting was going on, and we just happened to get a lot of negative news during those time frames. I don't know if it's a coincidence or not. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But now that there's less shorting, there's less negative news coming out like before, this could actually help Tesla to some degree. On top of that, the technicals are suggesting that as well. Very, very big wick right here. Very nice bounce, a very clean one in the very beginning of the day. Tesla filled the gap that formed, and now it looks like it could be establishing either an inverse head and shoulders or maybe an uptrend from here on out. This tells me Tesla could come down a little bit to about this like 184 level, then try to bounce. But if anything, I do believe the bigger move is going to be to the upside. We're likely going to see this thing approach 190 or break it very soon, in my opinion. We're on the verge of getting this crossover on the MACD. Also on the RSI, we did form, I think we almost formed a divergence. Let me just double check that for you. I'm not really seeing a divergence actually, but if anything, it is improving in terms of price action. So I believe we have more potential for upside in the markets. I mentioned this yesterday that if you look at what SPY was doing, we could actually encompass this entire price action using Elliott Wave. We could also use the Fibonacci retracements. Looking at the very important retracement, we have the 0.236 around 404. I did mention to you guys that we could come all the way down there on SPY, then get a nice bounce, or we could just bounce from the lows from yesterday. That's very close to what ended up happening. And I was talking about a bounce, right? I did mention that more of the bounce would probably happen next week, early next week before CPI. And that is so far what this thing is doing. Now, we had this big wave one over the last couple of weeks. We had this decrease, this pullback for wave two. Wave three was this very, very bullish move that happened last week. Then we had this pullback that was going on for the last couple of days, followed by one last wave five, which suggests we could make a new high. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I'm not too sure, but I do believe SPY will retest 411 very soon. We did hold above 409, which is a bullish signal. And overall, we're doing quite well. Now, I want to note something that's not the best of news for the bulls, however, and that's the fact that we have CPI on Wednesday, and my only problem is right now the RSI has come down pretty hard compared to where it was at these levels when it was very overbaked. So I'm starting to think what's going to happen if the market does rally approaching CPI, but what if we break the highs? If we break the highs we made, the only problem is the RSI might form a lower high and form a divergence, right? When I talk about divergences, I'm just talking about the difference between technical indicators and what the charts are telling us. So for example, look at this divergence here. SPY made a lower high right here. I'm sorry, a lower low right here. Excuse me. A lower low was made right here. SPY went down. The RSI got higher. We went from 46 to about 49. So the RSI goes higher, the price goes lower, and then we get this bounce, right? Well, here's the problem. If we continue to rally early into next week, going into like CPI, if we do break the highs, we could form another divergence with the RSI. The RSI was very overbought here. What if the RSI is not as overbought during that time frame? The market could reverse off CPI. It's a real possibility, and that's the reason why I really mitigate my risks by not really playing too many options through CPI. I don't really hold too often. I really just hedge most of the time and just watch on the sidelines. It's very risky. CPI is very manipulated. But until then, like I said, the market might continue to rally approaching CPI. I just don't know how it's going to react afterwards. But like I said, there's still lots of bullish signals here. I do believe SPY is going to continue to keep going, and I do believe this could help Tesla. Microsoft, I told you that this thing would likely pull back a little bit, and then we'd get a nice bounce. It pulled back to about 282. My target was actually this gap fill around 280 flat and then a bounce. So it actually held a little bit better than I thought. And then we got the bounce. It did actually break above 290. My target was 290 flat. So it did even better than I predicted. But overall, it looks to me like we have a very strong trend now. We might see Microsoft continue to maybe try to get to this 295. We do have a divergence that forms, so maybe it pulls back a little, then bounces. But overall, it's still looking relatively strong. On the QQQ, I just want to note that my prediction was almost exact on this. I told you we'd likely fill this gap down here, come all the way down to about 313, if not a little lower. Then I told you we'd likely bounce off of that. What did the QQQ do? We actually bounced off 312.82, very close to 313. Then it kept going. I told you we'd likely retest this like 318 area. That is what it did. And to me, it looks like it has more steam left. It's likely going to try to continue, especially because of what NVIDIA is doing. I'm going to show you that in a couple of minutes. The VIX is looking weak again. One of the things I told you guys in my previous videos was I told you the VIX would likely go up in value. This was a couple of days ago, and I told you the market would have a pullback. I told you Tesla would drop to like 190, then I told you 187, then I told you 180, right, from yesterday. Then I told you we'd likely see a bounce around there in the markets. And what's happening is the VIX got rejected off this 20 area, like I told you. It rejected very close to where the 50 EMA is, and now it's coming down, and it broke below the 18.5 support the VIX had, which tells me the VIX is looking weak, the market's looking stronger. We're likely going to see more upside in the market temporarily. Now, a lot of this could depend on the unemployment data, of course, but like I said, the technicals still look more bullish for the time being. For Amazon, Amazon so far is once again looking more bullish. We're about to get a crossover here. It did actually go to my target of $100. I thought it would bounce off 100. It bounced off 99.8. It might get closer to 105 going into next week. Tesla's looking bullish. I'm just going to talk about two more of these before I end the video. I have to actually end this a little early. NVIDIA might cool off just a tiny bit, then continue going. We have this gap up to 275. That could help the market drag up. Apple has a gap up at 165. It might cool off just a tiny bit, then continue to go and try to actually get back to 166.5 or so. Google, I told you guys Google is looking bullish. What did Google do? It broke out even harder than I expected. I thought this thing would stop around like 107.5 and went all the way up to 110. So yeah, some stocks were even more bullish than I suspected, but overall, I was correct about a bounce eventually coming. I was just not as sure about whether the bounce would come near the end of the day today or maybe early next week, but the bounce did come. Now for Tesla, we came down, we got the bounce off 180, and it actually closed around 185. I believe Tesla will most likely break above 190 and get to 195 at least early next week. That's what I'm essentially seeing. So anyways, guys, that's what I have for this video. Tesla's looking pretty good. I will make another video tomorrow. The market's going to be closed. I will talk about the data, though, that's coming out tomorrow. So please be ready. Thank you all so much for listening. Tesla to the moon, because the long term is still very, very bright. And peace out.